Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, and today we are going to be working on figuring out some taillights for the Sweetheart Roadster. So I did a bunch of stuff in the trunk area here and got it all welded up, and I know in the last video I said I was going to probably do the transmission, but we've been having some cars on the lift, and I'd like to have this on the lift, so I want to keep moving on the car again, making those small victories. So since the car's already turned this way and we have the space, I need to figure out what I'm doing for taillights on this. So today is figuring out taillights on Sweetheart Roadster, and we're going to put something on the car in this video. I don't know what yet. So another thing that kind of prompted this is we were recently picking, and I found a set of these 58 Chevy taillights. I've always really liked these, and I thought if they were Frenched into the back panel, they could look pretty cool. I have some 42 to 8 Buick taillights kicking around that I could try, and some other stuff here and there, but these are the ones that I've kind of always had in the back of my head now that I finally have a set. We're going to start by kind of holding them up with these jack stands here, standing back, eyeballing it, and seeing if it is something that will work on this car. We will see. So let's get started. So we got our handy dandy taillight stands here. Yeah. Sunk it in. That could be kind of cool. What do you think? What do you think, Steve? You like that?
Yeah.
I was afraid of the Buick taillights that I have. They're kind of small.
Right. That's a great proportion.
Yeah, and I think, you know, before I was thinking with the Buick ones, they're small, and then I try and fit tailpipes and all this other stuff in the back. But with those, I think you could just do that, and then you just have a plate here, you know, and that would fill it all up nicely, but not look super busy. And I was worried with the exhaust pipes, a plate, taillights with the other ones, but I think that'll be pretty cool.
I like that a lot.
I really like the peak that they have in them here.
Yep, there's a lot of visual interest.
Yeah, so if those were sunken in to where I think just where it starts coming out was sticking out, you know, Frenched in.
Yep.
Just so this side bezel piece is kind of like flush.
Yeah.
And you just have that little peak hanging out, and then the taillights themselves will just barely be sticking out.
And you French them in and you get rid of the flat and everything.
Yeah,
it's going to look even.
They won't look as big.
Crazier.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they'll look as big either, because it'll kind of.
Right. True. Yeah. You'll just have much less of it showing. Yep.
Yeah. So from the side, you're not going to have like these big giant things sticking off of it. But I think visually, like with just some of the other flowy trim and the headlights and stuff, and also with having the 4 headlights and the 4 taillights, it kind of like it flows a lot better than doing some of the other ones. Yeah, I kind of did. right, so we had gotten this project car over here that may or may not have been in the week in the life of video that we've been doing, and it came with a louvered deck lid. And Steve and I were standing here staring at it, and I go, and a light bulb went off in my head, and I said, wait a second. So see, there's an empty hole. This thing has a louvered deck lid now. Nice thing about having all kinds of junk laying around, it's like, it's like Legos every day. That looks awesome. We both love it. Can't find a bad angle. And I think it just really, this car is a little borderline over the top, so I think having the louvered deck lid adds to all of that. So now that we like everything, we ended up deciding on centering the taillights between this bead and the opening here. We centered the taillights, we centered the plate, and I think it looks great. So now I just have to do everything. So I'm gonna take some actual measurements side to side. I do have to fix this gap here. This gap is too big, I think, on this side, but I need to take a look at it. It might be that that side's too tight, I don't know. But I think this gap is a little on the large side, so I may need to correct that. So we're actually using the edge of this body line as our guide for measurements on this, and then I can just fix that down the road. I don't know if that side's too tight. I think this side's definitely too large, but it might be a combination of the two, so we will see. But by measuring off that body line, that should get me what I need, and I can correct all the gaps another day. So yeah, that's basically what it's going to look like. I just got to make some tunnel pieces to French the lights in, and then start cutting holes in our nice rear panel now. All right, so in the last couple of shots, I was tack welding together our buckets for Frenching our taillights in. And pretty simple stuff. If you look at any of the old magazines, they just basically cut a plate of steel, wrap some metal around. That's kind of what we're doing. Sometimes I tend to overcomplicate things. And really, when you're doing this stuff, it can be achieved in a simpler manner. So that's what I'm doing here, trying to keep it just like it would have been done back in the day, minus we're using a TIG welder. So I basically made the depth of my bucket, I think it was like 1 3/8 inches maybe. That was the thickness of the taillight here. So when this is all mounted and pulled tight and everything, it's going to be basically, our bucket is going to be flush with the side, or maybe the edge of the bucket will just stick out a tiny bit and peek out from the side. And then you're just going to have that beak or nose portion of the light that's going to stick out from a side view that will look really cool. But it's going to make the lights, they already look a lot less bulky. You can see I have that. The driver's side one is sitting in there. I do need to sand away a little bit of the inner structure at the top here. There's like a cross brace, and because of the size of the lights and we want them centered in the panel, I had to kind of get up into that area. So I'm going to use the belt sander and just carefully sand it away a little more so we can get the lights so they're sitting at the right angle. They're centered in our opening. Luckily, the taillights have screws that are set on either side of the lenses that are basically dead center. So what we can do is try and eyeball, or use the laser, however we're going to do it, get those lined up with our marks that we've already made. And then once I like it, I'll tack weld this bucket into the car, and then we can finish weld everything, and then we will be ready to blend it all in and bolt the taillights in, which will be really exciting. So got a lot of welding ahead of me, but we've kind of crossed the big hurdle here of getting the lights in the buckets and how we like them roughly looking. So I'm gonna get welding. All right, so got everything welded up. I threw the deck lid back on and the license plate and all that stuff, and it is pretty good. The taillights probably need a little bit of adjustment. I think I'm going to open up the holes. I made all the holes fit really, really tight when I put everything together, that for the bulbs and also the 4 studs, and need just a little wiggle room just to get everything to sit in just right. So I think I'm going to open up those holes, but I wanted to make them nice and tight when I was fitting everything up so that we didn't get anything out of square or whatever. So it's all really close. The edges of the panel of the surround could probably use a little bit more filing. There's a couple little spots where it's not perfectly symmetrical, but it's darn close. I'm fairly happy with it. I also need to go back and do some hammering and dollying and fixing some dents and things from, warping things that move around a little bit when you weld. I already tapped out a couple spots, but I need to really spend some dedicated, an hour or two just going over the panel to get nitpick any of those little areas. But overall, it's looking really cool. It's pretty crazy how you get all these ideas floating in your head, and hopefully we show that a lot in the videos, that like you have ideas in your head, and as you're out hunting for parts, you find something and it just like boom, that's the part. So we were out picking earlier this week. I kind of always thought these taillights were cool, and then I found a set and held them up and like boom, that's the ones. They're it. And a few days later, here we are. They're welded in and everything's pretty much finished out, and I am really happy with the outcome. I think it looks really cool with having the four taillights in here. It kind of matches the 4 headlights. The little peak in the taillights here matches on the headlights. There is a little bit of a peak like that, and also there is kind of this pointiness to the lenses of the headlights as well. So it all kind of flows together. I didn't really fully know that from the beginning. I think that in my head, that's kind of why I like them, but I didn't know it until we got them on here and we're putting them on and we're kind of discussing it. It's like, wow, everything kind of flows together. That's why it was right when I got them and held them up. It just seemed right, and I'm really happy. This car is just, for me, it's kind of coming together and really starting to nail that like 1958 to maybe 62 show rods, so to speak, before they started getting like really, really out of control wild in the mid to late 60s. I think this is a, kind of how we're building that car, and it's a neat little era that hasn't gotten super popular in this resurgence. A lot of people have done cars like this, but it's not like you see everywhere a car running around like this with a show rod like this. So it's kind of neat for me, and it's really fun to do all this customizing on this car versus maybe some of the stuff that's more of an earlier style. You're more just swapping certain parts on. You're not as much doing full-blown custom like this, which is really great. So thank you guys for following along. Let me know what you think of the taillights. I know this is going to be like the headlights, where it's going to be a love it or hate it type thing. I love it. You can put your hate in the comments. I don't really care. It's always interesting to watch the discussion and see what everybody thinks. So thank you guys for following along. Appreciate it. Catch you later.